One thing you may find helpful when working on a project with multiple data sources is to bring everything together into a single spreadsheet file and then organize all of your key variables into a single worksheet. For example, in the study we've been describing in this toolkit, we have multiple sources of data. I recommend having one worksheet serve as the master tab, like we've done here on this page. This is where all of the primary information you'll use in your final analysis will go. I'm using Google Sheets for this example, but everything I describe works the same way in Excel. To begin, you'll want each student record to have a single line of data. First, be sure to include your unique student identifier, such as a student ID, in the first column. This will be key for linking the student information from all of the other data sources together. On this page is where I also suggest you include the student's group number, for example, if they're in the intervention group or if they're in a non-intervention or control group. You may also find it helpful to include the students' names if you happen to have a data source in your study that does not have the unique student ID. Up here at the top of the screen, I've created column headers for the key variables that I eventually will want to bring into this worksheet. These include their original admit status, the student's age, and if they've participated in prior library instruction. I'll also want to bring in the total engagement rubric score and the total evaluation rubric score. And we'll come back to these headers in a few moments. But first, let's go ahead and create tabs for each of your many data sources. To create a new worksheet tab, it's easy. In Google Sheets, you can simply go to the plus sign at the bottom of the page to add a sheet, or you can go up here to the top of the page in the navigation ribbon and select Insert and New Sheet here at the bottom of the page. So let's go ahead and add a new sheet. I've already done that in this example, but to add a new sheet, it's very easy. Just select New Sheet, and then down here at the bottom, give it a name. I'm just going to say Test. And then here is where you would add your data for your first data source. So you can see here I've created worksheets for the workshop quiz responses. The workshop was the library intervention workshop where we asked students to respond to a simple little quiz. And once again, you can see that I have the student identifier in column A, which you'll want to do consistently for all of your data sources. I also have a tab for the end of semester survey responses. This is the data source where you'll also be able to pull in the original admission status and a student's age and if they have participated in previous library instruction. The next tab I created is the engagement rubric scores. Once again, we have the participant ID in the first column. These are the scores that were auto-generated based on our inputs into the online rubric form. And then I created a new column called Total Engagement Score here, where I simply added up the engagement scores across the page. There's another similar tab for the evaluation rubric scores. Once again, we have the study ID in the first line, the first column. These are all of the scores that were generated through our inputs into the evaluation rubric form. And then I created a final column to total up those scores across for each student. And then this last tab is an example of a fully aligned data set that you could return to if you're just kind of looking to see how we put things together in our study. Let's go ahead and return to the master sheet for now. You can either use these navigation arrows to scroll left or right, or you can simply click on this little icon and click on Master. Let's now work on bringing in the data from our key data sources into this master worksheet. This can easily be accomplished by using VLOOKUP formulas, which generate an automated process. This is a safer way to align data, especially if you have a large data set, as it minimizes the risk of human error that comes from doing things manually. Let's begin with these first three variables: original admit status, age, and prior library instruction, that are highlighted in yellow. The information for these three variables all come from the same data source, which is the end of semester survey responses. Let's start by bringing in original admit status. So to begin, just simply click in the first blank cell, E2, type in equals, and then the words VLOOKUP, and then an open parenthesis. And now we need to tell our computer to look first in this first cell for ID, which is cell A2. So go ahead and click in A2, then comma. Now we need to tell the computer where to look next to see if we can find a match. So then go ahead and click on the end of semester survey responses tab. I'm going to up here, I'm going to highlight all of the columns, and then I'm going to type in another comma. So we're telling the computer, look in all of these columns. If it finds a match for student ID, then we want it to deliver the information that is in column E, original admission status. So to do that, rather than using the column letter, we have to assign it a corresponding number. So we're just counting columns here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're telling it, if you find a match of student ID, then deliver us the information that's in column 5. So type in 5 and then the word false, and then close paren and hit enter. And so now you can see that that formula automatically brought in that corresponding admission status for that first student. And then you can see what it, rather than an actual value, it's brought in a reference to that other worksheet. And then you can just simply drag down with your cursor to auto-populate the rest of the records. Let's do the same thing for age. So again, I'm typing in equals, VLOOKUP, open paren. We're going to tell the computer again to look in column A, row 2, for the ID, then comma. Click on where your source data is. Once again, I'm highlighting all of the data. I'm going to put in another comma, and this time we're telling it, if it finds a match of student ID anywhere, then give us the information that is in column 6 for age. And then type in false. False means that if it finds that match, then give us the exact information that's found in that column and cell reference. So you can see here we have the age, and I just brought that down. I don't know why that came in purple. It was probably some other code from different work, but that's okay, no big deal. Let's do the same thing for prior library instruction. Once again, we have that really bright purple. Okay, and now let's go ahead and bring in the total engagement rubric score and the total evaluation rubric scores. This time we're going to go to the engagement rubric score sheet and do the same kind of VLOOKUP formula. So I'm just typing in equals VLOOKUP, click on that first ID in column A. Now we're going to tell it to go look in the engagement rubric scores worksheet. If it finds a match for participant ID, then we want it to deliver the information that is in column E, which is the fifth column. Oops. So engagement was measured by participation in an intervention. And so you can see here, these students down here have an NA. That's because there's no data in the data source spreadsheet for those students. They did not receive the intervention. So you can either leave that as NA, or you can just highlight that information and delete it. And then finally we have the the evaluation score. One last VLOOKUP. Or we're looking for evaluation score. It's in this spreadsheet, and it's in column 9. And everybody should have an evaluation score. So there you go. All of our data are now aligned. And I find it helpful to create a copy of this data. Right now, we have this master spreadsheet, and let's call that original. We just want to make a backup copy or a backup worksheet so that our original data is still intact in case we make a mistake. So I'm going to create a duplicate by simply right-clicking on the master original, saying duplicate. So now you can see we have a copy. I usually like to call this the working copy. And it's in this worksheet where I'm actually going to do all my work. But before we do that, remember all of these data we just brought in are actually cell references, and we want them to be actual numbers or categories. So I'm going to just highlight everything in this worksheet by clicking in this upper left corner so you can see everything's active. And I'm just going to press Control C to copy. And then I'm going to go to Paste Special and Paste Values Only, and I'm going to paste the same information right over top of everything. Though this time, if we look in the data columns, you can see that we're looking at actual data rather than references. So I think that's a good place to stop for now. Thank you.